Always, whenever I get in trouble, I didn't want to quit. I wanted to be smarter. I was already in trouble at kindergarten. It's kind of a story. If you were to read it, it would be like, when's the good part going to come? And there really just wasn't a good part. It was just more trouble and more trouble too. I had cops at my house all the time. It felt like. One day he made this proposition to me. He said, "Hey, you ever thought about selling weed?" And I let two girls rob me, basically.
Where'd you meet these ones at?
I never met them. First time. First and last, man. You like instantly buy from people who are the cartel. So I don't know what they thought, but these two dudes rolled up in my garage with pistols out. I noticed there's a car following us. And I'm like, that is definitely a cop car, but it's unmarked. It's like an undercover, we would call. I would say, my childhood growing up, I had a mom and dad who were together. I was in San Diego, but they ended up splitting up when they came to Vegas, and so I pretty much lived with my mom. Even though my dad was in the same city as me, I grew up in technically a fatherless household where I was having an influence of a father on a consistent basis rather than every couple of weeks or a ride home or a ride here and there. And so, life as a kid, I was a pretty wild kid. I was already in trouble at kindergarten, preschool, already causing trouble, little rebel. I remember discovering cuss words and learning from kids, thinking it was funny. And then I remember cussing out some teacher when I was a kid, and my mom shoving soap down my bar of soap in my mouth. And, my mom used to beat me with a belt on my butt, not like in a malicious way, but old school way. I think, I think it's kind of funny now. Always in trouble, but always with a preface to a potential. I had teachers tell me all the time, he has such a potential. He has so much going for him, but he's making wrong choices, basically. And I never thought, I couldn't even process that idea of having potential. I don't even know. I really didn't care. Like, you're a kid, you're just doing whatever's cool, like whatever you kind of find your way in life. And so that really meant nothing to me. Just trying to have fun and experience life. I had probably too much freedom. And, growing up on the little block I was at, it was a cul-de-sac, and all the neighbors that had kids, and we would all hang out. All age groups, discovered all the stuff, because my mom and dad, they're not American. My dad's from North Africa, a country called Tunisia, Mediterranean coast country, and my mom's from South Africa. And so they're both foreigners in this nation. And not that it doesn't make them people, but it's not like an American upbringing. There's no heritage here. And so they're split up. So it's basically just me with no place to fall back on, no family, no places to look. So my only references in life were just literally friends.
Right.
Or anybody I made close to me, but not anybody in an adult way that would lead me anyway, And so I just continued down that path, it's kind of a story. If you were to read it, it would be like, when's the good part going to come? And there really just wasn't a good part. It was just more trouble and more trouble. And so things escalated. I went to middle school, and, I didn't understand how, actually, even in elementary school, I didn't understand how to be cool or dress. I would see kids that would dress a certain way, and my mom would put me in little boy English shorts and collared shirts to school, and all the kids were wearing their favorite baseball team and favorite cartoon character, and they had cool spiky hair and gel, and I didn't have any of that stuff, and all my shoes were from Payless. I just wore Airwalks or something. I don't even know really what I wore. My mom just bought clothes. I wore them, and I would just, then you're learning, growing up, like, wow, people are, there's cool and not cool. And that was a huge, like for anybody, I think, who's wants something out of life, you kind of chase that a little bit. You want to be respected, you want to be cool, you want to be, but, it kind of turns like into, that was more important than the schoolwork or anything else in life. And so I was a class clown, joking around, getting kicked out of this class, getting kicked out of there, always maybe fighting or, something like that, just troublemaking. And then I went to middle school, and actually I moved houses from there to North Las Vegas. And it was cool, actually, another, not a cul-de-sac, but another road where a lot of people had kids. I mean, there must have been 20 of us again, all eight, five, between a 5 year difference, some of the older ones, 16, 14, 15. That was 9, 10 at the time. And these dudes were skateboarding outside, building ramps with their own with wood, and they were just cool. They had girls over, and then they were just rebels and just they were cool. Like, they were like punk rock skater dudes. And they were just really cool. My neighbor was involved, my buddy Jordan, and his big brother Devin, and all these dudes. And skateboarding was the thing. And so I got a skateboard, and I wanted to be cool. I thought it was, I didn't have a clue about skateboarding. We would just learn, and that became my life, skateboarding, and which turned into someone smoked cigarettes, and then, whoa, and then, smoke a cigarette, and then, a beer, and it's like, whoa, they got beer, and then, now I'm like 11, 12, 13, and it's like, whoa, and then you see people, they're partying, they're hanging out, they're getting together with no adults. It's just like, but we're all like, just like young teens. It's kind of wild, and, middle school, I was into all kinds of stuff. I had all kinds of groups of friends, and I just smoked weed. I used to do graffiti. I thought all those guys, a lot of them were taggers and being, I don't know, man, just trying to, like, we used to watch these movies where dudes would go on the trains in Las Vegas and bum fights, and these movies, and these just drug addict tagger skateboard videos. I don't even know what you would call them. Just ridiculous nonsense, like in a video that was like filmed by a camcorder back in the late 90s or something.
Right.
And we thought that was cool. We thought that was just so funny. We just and got just mixed up in all that stuff and embraced it. Just, that was a part of my life. That's all I knew at that point. I was like a fish in water. Just all I knew. And, I got arrested for tagging at 14, me and my buddy. And, and then I was in 8th grade, and then I got kicked out of the middle school I was in for having weed in my pocket. I ditched school, and they saw me on camera, and I got expelled. And I started, and then I went to like some opportunity school here in Vegas, Las Vegas, and then went to high school, same old story, just doing the same old things. Now we're in high school, and I'm a tall kid. I've always been tall. So no one really thought of me as like, obviously everyone fought and picked fights, but not as much because I was a little bit bigger, and so I got mixed up with older kids pretty quick, and we just did the same old thing, just smoking pot, ditching school, trying to hang out, trying to find girls that would be into that. And I lived across the street from my high school, so it was really easy. I just literally walk across the street and I could be at home. So my house became like a little ditch spot, people would come by, and we would, ditch and smoke pot and go back or whatever. And I remember school cops were coming into my neighborhood. I used to see them riding their bike looking for, I think, people coming over. I've had cops come over a few times, knocking on my door, coming in every side way, thinking we were up stealing, breaking in the house. I was like, no, man, I live here, kind of thing, I just come here a lot, when I'm supposed to be at school. And then later on in that year, I meet this guy. I had taken interest in music. I liked music when I was a kid in middle school. We played guitar, and I liked to play the drums. I learned from my buddy, and got into drumming a little bit. And I wanted a drum set in my house, and it was too loud for my neighbor. He used to call the cops too. I had cops at my house all the time, it felt like. And he and my mom was like, well, what can we do to like suppress the sound, I guess? Make it, we didn't have a clue about sound foam. And my mom somehow randomly got this builder dude. He was just some older guy. And he started building my room, trying to make it soundproof or whatever, soundproof. And he was cool, but I was a little pothead, and he kind of saw what we were doing, He's like, one day he pulled me aside. He's like, yeah, I see you got all these buddies, and, I can see you guys like to skateboard or whatever. And I think I smelled a little weed or something. He brought it up, and then he became cool. He was like, yeah, I'm cool. Like, I used to skate back in the 80s, where I'm from, we grow weed, he's trying to like be cool with me, and one day he made this proposition to me. He said, hey, you ever thought about selling weed? And I said, no. He's like, well, it's a great way to get high for free and make a little bit of money. I said, well, my ego kicked in, and some older guys talking to me about making money and stuff, and I don't have a clue about nothing. So I was like, yeah, I was interested, piqued my interest. And so he goes, hey man, tell you what, I'll give you a 1/4 ounce. I'll front it to you. You sell it, and you can buy it back, and whatever you keep is yours. That only turned out to be, if you did the math, it only turned out to be like $20. He basically gave me 1 gram I could smoke or keep the $20 or something, and then I took that, and I remember just that first 1/4 ounce he gave me was just a wild first quarter, like first selling something like that for the first time. Very first time was, I think, half of them I got trying to get robbed. A friend of mine, well, not a friend, he was like an old thug, kind of like gangbanger dude who's huge. He was like Shaq, but really mean. And I don't know why in the world I tried to sell to him, but he definitely tricked me and snatched it out of my hand with it while he was in the car and took off, and there was half of it. And then the other half was another gram of it, another quarter, percentage of it was these 2 girls. They tried to just same old thing. They're in the car, I'm outside the car, and they just grab it. And this time I was like, no, I saw this happen, and I was hanging on. They're dragging me along in this car, dragging me out in the window, and I'm going so fast, and I'm thinking, I'm going to literally get really hurt. So I said, this ain't that worth that much. So I just let go, and I let 2 girls rob me, basically. I think they're in their 20s at the time. And I thought, man, I got this little bit left. What am I going to do? I owe this guy $120. What am I do?
So, funny question, but what type of girls were these girls? Like, where'd you meet these girls at?
You know what's so funny? I have no stinking clue. Somehow they found out they were a referral of somebody. I never met them. First time. First and last. And so I really don't know. But I do know that they were crazy. I mean, that's crazy, dude. Ready to kill somebody over $20 of weed. And then so I only have a little bit left now. Now I get desperate, and I say, I'm going to take this to school, because there's a bunch of kids in my school, maybe. Because I originally said I'm not going to go to school because I got caught up with weed at school. It was instant. First time I did, I got literally expelled, and I was like, I really don't really need this right now. And at this point, the school I went to across the street, I was kicked out of. I went to an opportunity school. Now I'm in a school called Centennial High School. And I meet all these new friends, all these new dudes. But I didn't come from where they came from. These guys, high school for a lot of people is like they went to middle school together, they have a relationship, when you're like a new guy, but I was cool with a lot of dudes, troublemakers again, not these kids weren't, you know, talking about going to college, but, I started, trying to make this weed, last and pay this guy back. And so I do it. I rip off people. I buy these little bags. I stuff them and I make that money back. And and then David, or I should be name dropping, but well, this guy's actually in prison for a crazy thing, but he fronted me another, uh, quarter and I said, yeah, sure. I'll do it again. And this time I was like, well, I learned my lesson from the first one and I'm going to start over. And so I'm going to do it right this time. And immediately I implemented a bunch of new strategies and stuff like that. And you know what? I brought it back and I flipped it and I got enough to get another quarter. I think I was ripping people off too. I think getting them short them. Got a little greedy, And then, long story short, for the next year, I was just making this stuff turn around for me. And I just literally did in doubles. I turned a half into a quarter to a half to an ounce, 2 ounces, 4 ounces, 8 ounces, a pound, 2 pounds kind of thing, just that took about a year and it's probably about almost 2 years or so, 17, 18. Yeah. And I had a girlfriend at the time. We were just like in and out of a relationship, but I always put my interests first, when you're a teenager, who cares, but I put a lot of people in jeopardy. I just put my mom's life in jeopardy. My house has been broken into a few times. Luckily, my mom wasn't there. I tried to do a little deal with this one dude who I met at a party who seemed cool. And, he wanted to buy the deal was originally like 8 pounds and I didn't have it on me. I wasn't dealing it that much at the time for that much for one transaction, but my partner did. Well, he wasn't my actual partner, it was my buddy. And, turns out they were always in it to rob us. So my buddy comes, there's a car and another guy comes out who's kind of like my stature, looks like me a little bit. He kind of comes to the garage with his backpack, and I think these dudes thought, all right, here's the dude with the weed, but I don't think they've ever seen 8 pounds because 8 pounds doesn't fit in a backpack. You know what I'm saying? 1 pound can barely fit in a backpack. So I don't know what they thought, but these two dudes rolled up in my garage with pistols out, pointing at me and my buddy Steve. Actually, his name was Steve. And, my mom's just in the house doing laundry, doing whatever moms do in the house. Just no idea that her son is literally being robbed by two thugs with guns.
Wow.
At that moment. And what was interesting is they were spooked and there was a car in the garage and one of them was just fixed on thinking there was somebody in the car. He kept saying, who's in that car? Who's in that car? And I'm like, dude, there's no one in the car, man. You're tripping. There's no one in the car, just me and this dude here. My brother, we made this lie. Me and my buddy, we're such good liars. We just lied on the spot. This is my cousin, so it's always coming by to give me some whatever. There's nothing in the backpack. There's nothing but some books or something, some stupid story. And my garage was like half mast, it was like just put down halfway. And I remember them leaving. I'm thinking, my mom could have popped out and done laundry and they could have just started shooting or, they could have just turned some. And here I am, put my mom, my life and everybody's life at risk over a little bit of cash. And I thought kind of big at the time. I really didn't think, a couple $1,000s or $20,000, $30,000 was really a lot of money in the grand scheme of things when you start to like crunch numbers and, it's really not, it wasn't $20 million, I don't think that it has to be a lot of weed to worth my life. You know what I'm saying? In my mind. And so I still played the game, just being dangerous, always, whenever I get in trouble, I didn't want to quit. I wanted to be smarter. I think it's a lot of people, when you struggle and whatever you do, you want to get better, And so, at that time, I was smoking pot, drinking beers, cigarettes every single day, partying on the weekends. And a lot of these kids I knew, they were getting hooked on these downers. I mean, we had done uppers like meth and all these upper type of drugs, you know, and I could afford my habits, so I just bought that stuff to party, really. And I noticed all these dudes were doing downers and stuff like that, and they're buying these pills, these prescribed medications, you know, Rocosets and OxyContin, and I didn't get sucked into that. I just thought it was stupid. You know, you see these guys and they're just looking like they're nodding, they're just like asleep. I'm like, that's you high. That's you're having a great time, just asleep. And I used to mock it, and you know, I was just partying, you know, so I just did whatever. So they're like, here, smoke this, you know, do this, do that, you know, and it's like, cool, all right. You know, you just, you know, when you're in that lifestyle, you're crazy. You just do whatever is being given to you by people you think you trust, you know.
Right.
And so I started doing this, smoking this stuff, doing this and that. And I started to like it. You know, it's like anything for the first time. There's this excitement. There's like this liberation. You feel like the most free, you know. That's how meth was when you first try that stuff. You know, don't ever try that stuff. But for anybody who has you, that first time is what most of those dudes chase. They chase that their whole drug career to the point where they're going to lose everything for that first time. And it never will come back because that's just the way it is, you know.
So how old are you around this time?
I'm around 17, 18.
So you're 17 years old,
Yeah.
living with your mom, and you're pretty much wilding out, like.
Yeah. Whatever I get my hands on.
Yeah. So at that point, like you said, you had this scenario where you almost get robbed. You're at your house
Yeah.
that you live at with your mom.
Yeah.
So the whole time you're starting to, I guess, you know, flip your product to where you're starting to get these large amounts of product.
Right.
And this is all at your mom's house.
Oh yeah.
Did she ever find out like
Well,
what you were doing?
back to that guy who built that room, he actually built a door that separated this bedroom. So there's a garage that led into a bedroom, and there was a door there. So the garage and this room were separated from the house by a thick, heavy door that I would lock. And I would tell my mom, this door is locked. So if you need to get in here, let me know, and I'll unlock it for you in her house. And my mom used to just think, he's doing something bad, but obviously it's not enough to, you know, and she would fight me here and there. But eventually she knew I smoked pot. It just was just hotboxed half the day. How do you not know? But she would never say anything. And I would, since it's just past, you know, this is not like my life anymore, I would keep all the drugs in multiple places, and I would keep money in multiple places. So I'd have like quick flip cash, you know. Well, I always had cash in my hands or in my pocket somewhere. I used to have this rule I learned from some guy. He taught me. He said, listen, man, this is what you do with cash. You keep 1s and 5s on you. Anything that's not a 1 or a 5, you don't spend. If you run out of 1s and 5s, then you're out of money. You know, that's how you save. And so I always had a thick stack of 1s and 5s in my pockets, in my jacket pockets. And then I would have change for people who had like hundreds or something. Maybe they wanted a couple hundred. I'd always have like at least $300-400 just in 20s, 10s and stuff like that, just to like give people 10s and 20s. Like if they gave me $100, whatever. But I had like stacked maybe like $1,000 or something like that. And then I'd have like maybe 4 ounces just chilling, just ready, disposable without having to go into bigger locations to acquire more things and different strands too. Like sometimes I'd have like 2 or 3, 4 different strands or different. I have a product ratio. So I'd offer people, hey, this isn't the best stuff, but you get a lot more. Or, hey, this is exclusive. Or, so I had a couple of grades, you would say, give people some options, not like not like terrible stuff, just like stuff that was cheaper. And so, I didn't want to be known as that stress dude,
Right.
I had
Or this right here is that this is that fire right here, bro.
right,
You're gonna pay a little bit more for
right.
this.
That's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And, I got to the point where I stopped selling dubs and eighths. I would only sell quarters. And then eventually I stopped selling to people who smoked pot because they just too much traffic at my mom's house. So I just decided, I need to limit what's going on here. But then I would get some stuff that was like that super fire, but sometimes I'd sell, hey, this is that 25 a gram type stuff, you know, I don't think anything was worth 25 at the, but I would, this is that stuff that you see in them magazines and that
Yeah.
stuff,
Back then though, yeah.
Back then it's like 2008,
Yeah.
2009, something like that, 7, something like that, So having like some granddaddy something, it's like, whoa, look at that, and, but so I picked up, so back to the downer pill stuff, it turned into smoking this stuff. These people tell me, hey man, you just smoke it. It's like better or something. And they said, and then later on, it was like, my buddy was like, why don't we just try black tar? Heroin. He said black, but it's heroin. Black tar heroin. You just smoke it or whatever. And I was like, I'm not putting nothing in my veins. I've seen all that stuff. I'm not being one of those dudes. I'm not. Like, I got too much dignity to be sticking needles in my arm. I just was like that. And then eventually later on, there's people that say, hey, man, it's way better high, bro. I'm like, yeah, I know it's better high. And at this time, I thought, I'm not going to fall for this okey doke again. So I ended up just buying a lot of black and I used to smoke it. I was tempted to sell it, but then my few interactions with people who sold it, it was like always so dangerous. It was never like, oh, it was like every time somebody wants to rob you, because $500 worth of stuff is like a lot to people who are like hurting or whatever. That's what they would say. I'm hurting, they're withdrawn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I had a couple of moments and then I said, nah, this ain't for me, man. You like instantly buy from people who are part of the cartel. I knew a guy who had a cartel spot and it was just ring-a-maroo to get from those Mexicans, that would sell this stuff. It's this go here, walk backwards, look under the bush, come where some guys are going to pop out and you get in their car and then you're going to drive down the street, and then you don't say anybody's name. You don't talk. You cannot say any words. I'm like, bruh, like, all right. And then like, where are you guys? Like, they're going to cut my head off, dude. Like, I just thought it just was not worth it to me, Some people just fall in there like hamsters, dude. I'm like, not me, dude. I seen all the movies and I know how all this stuff ends, They're gonna kill the white boy, And so I didn't go for it, man. And I said, nah, I'm gonna stay in the cool, in the hippie, in the ganja stuff, I had buddies who grew. I think one time we were talking and I told you we drove out to
California, right?
Yeah. California into the this Northern California stuff, all them places in Northern California where they have all these grow operations going on and indoor works. And we're picking up, weight from over there. But it's such a drive, it's such a risk, but people risk it, you got to risk it if you want to make it.
Yeah. We would call that an out of state plug.
Yeah. Yep. I was trying to get out of that and go into the out of state because they just had better deals, and I knew they were trying to they would have so much that they needed to get rid of it, so you could bargain with them, you could come up there, you could plan, and if you can make it back home, you can get good prices on some really good stuff. And so I thought my life was going to be this. I was convinced I'm going to be doing some rest. I think I even told myself that, like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, you know. Maybe even it turns into just growing by myself and just being somewhere, you know, you have all these imaginations when you like
Right.
have no clue about anything, you know, you just wild ideas. Like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do with my life, you know.
Right. Selling drugs.
Selling drugs, growing drugs, being around, trying to find your, you know, because there's an influence that you have when you are up, you know, and you find yourself at cool bars and strip clubs and places that, you know, you need money or influence to get in, and I would meet people that could get you into these certain places or at certain, you know, so it was like you become really the plug. You become like part of that crew. Like, and I just used to hang on the end. You know, I was just the young homie, just the young dude, you know, so you don't really, you know, it's all so new, you know, going to these clubs and all this stuff. And as the minor, you know,
Right.
yeah, actually, I think I was about 18 by the time the height of that came. And so, you know, and then, but with all of that, uh, there was some backstabbing, some friendships, some long friendships that I had. What broke me the most that I really started to think about my life a little bit more was I had a friend that I'd known since I was probably 12. And he was always a little bit older and always cooler. You know, he's like one of those like super mega popular dudes and he just knew everybody. And, but we grew up, I knew his little brother. And, but as I grew up, I became more influential, I guess, and people knew me, and we became more mutual than I used to look at up to him as like a
Right.
superstar of these people that we grew up with. You know, like we were really all just a bunch of nobodies, but you know, at the time that's your life. And so, but I remember showing him we were going to go out. I was going to take him to this club that my buddy had taken me to, and he told me, "Oh, I'd never done this or that." And so I had the upper hand in this relationship, and I just got a little bit too happy, I think. And I just started showing him all this stuff I had. I was just showing him bags and bags of weed I had in a safe because we were friends. I don't know why, but I just thought I thought we were buddies. I thought he could handle it.
Right.
And I was just showing him, instead of showing him, I would just pull out like whole pounds that I had of this and that. And, you know, and his eyes opened up real wide. And I think he was like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff or whatever. Like, and then later on, like a week or something later, I go to jail. I get busted with another friend of mine. He takes me to this guy. Now, at this point, now I'm doing heroin. I'm a black heroin addict. I say I'm an addict because I smoked it every single day, every day, for months and months and months. I don't know, maybe like 7, 8, 9 months at this time. And we're gonna go meet this new dealer, this new guy. He's got good stuff, better price, right? It's always the deal. Good stuff, better price. So first time I ever go in this guy's truck, and he's got this massive truck. I'm driving this literal like psycho truck. We're just driving it. It's like this massive truck. It's like no bed on it. It's like 40 something inch tires, and it's just loud. It's just ridiculous. And we go, and then we're driving away from this place, and I notice there's a car following us, and I'm like, that is definitely a cop car, but it's unmarked. It's like an undercover, we would call, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's following us a lot. He made a couple of lane changes, and then my buddy was like, yeah, dude, he's following us. He's following us, man. He's like, we gotta hide this. We gotta hide all the stuff we bought. And this guy who sold us all this stuff sold it all to us in like dime bags. He gives like 20 bags that were all dimed. I thought, why is this guy giving us all this stuff in different bags? And so
This is the black tar, or
yeah, this is black.
okay.
Yep, and cocaine. He gave us a bunch of coke. I just told him give me some coke for fun. I'm just gonna do some later tonight. I think it was like a Friday or something. That was just for me, just because I heard he had it or something. And so, and again, he sold to me in like all these little bags, and it was like crazy. I thought it was stupid. I was like, who's this dude? And now we're getting pulled over. Those lights, they start flashing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and my buddy's like, dude, we're getting pulled over. Let's throw it. And he had this radio that was just missing. It was like you know how we used to like get those radio decks?
Yeah.
It was cool to have like a new up,
like a touchscreen.
like a radio deck. Yeah, like whatever, He had a place for it, but it was missing because he was going to replace it or some mumbo jumbo, but it's just a big hole. And it just like fell down the back. And he started throwing all his stuff in there. And I thought, I don't know what it was God or something. But I thought, I'm not going to put it in there. This is the dude driving. And I put it in my socks. I took my shoe off and I put this stuff in the bottom of my shoe. So now it's like I'm crunching it with my toes. It's in my toes.
Right.
But I have it crunched in my feet though. And I thought, I'm just going to rock this out. We're good. Even if he takes my shoes off or takes my socks off, I'll just have my feet down or something. I just had this little stupid thing planned out in my head. So he pulls us over and he says, hey, you got to get out of the car. This car, you guys came from somewhere that's being watched. That's what he told me. He says, you guys came out of a house that's being watched. So I said, this is his problem. You're pulling him over, dude. Like, that's your problem, bro. Like, you get a ticket. Like, I'm cool right here. And he says, nah, buddy, you better get out of this car. Cause you're, like I said, we just basically became part of an ongoing investigation.
Sting operation.
Yeah. Got him, dude. He pulls us over and gets us all out of the car. We're sitting down. I'm handcuffed and he's starting to search the car. And, I'm 18, bro. And my buddy's 20 or something. But this dude's huge. This guy's like 6'4", like 220, 240 or something like that. And he's a psycho. And so we're getting pulled over and we start getting searched and he wants me to take off my shoes. And they can't find the stuff, but they notice they have a hole. The cop goes, there's a big hole in where his radio is. I'm going in. That's what he said. I'm going in. And so they start taking his panels apart. They start taking the undercarriage of his car, the plastic. They start ripping it out. And they found it, dude. They literally found it before they even found me. And they said, well, look what we got here. And I said, I don't know what that is. I'm just lying. And I take off my shoes and then he tells me, take off your socks. And I go, crap. I'm like 90% sure I'm toast right now. And so I pull off my socks all the way to the edge of my toes. And then the cop grabs my sock. And boom, all these bags pop out. He's like, oh, you didn't have nothing, huh? Wow, what a surprise. And he told me you're lying to me. Oh, it looks like all these bags. So it was like bartering. We go to North Las Vegas. And it's all 4 felony. I see my charges. Like, felony for this, felony for this, felony for this, felony for that. It's like 4 or 5 felonies. I'm like, oh, I'm dead. And, but I had this inclination. So to tie back to my friend who I'd known for a long time, I go to jail and I have this crazy feeling, gut feeling, because of the guy I was with. He's really popular. Everyone's going to know I went to jail. Everyone's going to know. He's a big blabbermouth. He couldn't keep nothing secret. Everyone's going to know, and they're going to find out I'm not home. And I have a strange feeling I was going to get robbed. So I call my collect call. You get a phone call. You're trying to call somebody at holding. So I'm trying to call my buddy Marvin. Right? I don't know if I should be named Marvin, but I call my buddy. And I said, dude, go to my house. There's a key here. I have ways of getting in my house. I left ways to get inside. And I said, get everything out of that safe. Get everything out of that safe. And I had a couple of boxes of cash. These are these like money changing boxes or whatever. And I said, they're under my bed and under the lip or whatever. And grab all that stuff. And I could trust this guy. As far as trust can go. And so a couple of days later, I'm in jail. And I talked to my mom. And she says, someone broke into our house. Someone broke into our house around 4:45
PM or AM?
PM, and my mom leaves her job. Now, my mom's at work. She worked, and so she left at 5. So at 4:45, this guy breaks in, and he breaks in through the master bedroom bathroom window, and he goes straight for where that closet was, and everything's gone though already, because I had already planned, because I just already thought this was going to happen. So they steal my game since I had an Xbox or some other crap in the house, computers or something like that, and they got something. Months later, I'm at a friend of mine, actually my girlfriend's best friend's house, and he's like, yo, I got this Xbox. And my Xbox was like this Halo 3 edition. It was like this army green kind of Halo, and then the tray cover was like this orange, and anybody who knows about that Halo stuff, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I know I wrote something on the bottom of it. I forgot what I saw. I wrote something in black, because I was a tagger, so I just tag on everything. And I thought, one day if someone steals this, like, I'm gonna like, no, they don't even know. And so that worked. So I go and I pull this thing, and I go, he said, he just got this, right? And I just got robbed. But how did this guy get this stuff? I'm thinking, this is crazy. And so I look up and I pull this thing, and I see my mark on it that I made. And I said, hey dude, where'd you get this? He's like, I got it from some dude. I was like, listen man, you have my Xbox in your house. You have my Xbox in your house, bro. Like, where, who? And he gave me this guy, this name. He said this name. He goes by Eric, but it's like the N-word. It's like N-word Eric. Like that's where they go. I probably shouldn't be name dropping, but they're not already dead. They're probably, and so funny, man. And the only guy who connects us is this friend. That's the only way these people would know each other, is through this one relationship.
Right.
It's the only way he would have known him.
So this name that he drops, is it the friend or is some other guy?
No, he's not the friend, but he's like a close friend of
the friend.
The actual my close relationship. I don't know. I know this guy a little bit, like party wise. Like I know him a little bit. He's older.
Yeah.
He was older. He was already like 25, 26, 27 when we were like 18. He just kind of was, I think he was like a bum or something, dude.
What you could have been even more than what you are if you had your dad in your life.
Absolutely. No, Reverend. And when you begin to do something great, like maybe you want to start a business, or maybe you want to go to college, or maybe you want to accomplish something in your workplace, you want to become a leader, or you want to scale a ladder or something like that, and the troubles that come with leadership, you realize that trying to be a leader really were connections that were supposed to be made by a father. A father by nature is a leader who leads his family. And that's how you learn not to throw a fit, whine, have a self-pity party, how to overcome people making fun of you and bagging on you. And you learn all those things when your dad is like, don't act like that. Don't think like that. Don't say that. Get your butt whooped, and now you're an adult and you're acting like a 5-year-old who had never had a disciplinary figure in their life.
Yeah.
And I found myself there. But yes, I think a father who tried to have an impact in your life is something that could change your whole life.
Right.
I think it's probably the most profound relationship I think there is in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you're growing up, you're raised primarily by your mom. You're getting these bits and spurts of your dad kind of popping in and out of your life and everything like that. Now, your mom having to essentially raise you on her own, do you think that's kind of what made her I guess kind of like spoil you, I guess?
Oh, yeah.
So where it's like, You got all this stuff going on, but she's kind of turning the blind eye
Oh
to
yeah.
what's going on.
I could have cut someone's head off and she thought I was a good boy. Not my son, you know. I'm definitely that guy. It was his friends who influenced him, you know, that kind of thing. You know,
Just shot somebody with the 45.
right,
She comes up with some excuse why
right.
why
I didn't mean it. I have a
you're
good
the
heart.
sweetest child on the planet.
Yeah, that's not my son. Yeah, that's my mom for sure. She spoiled me. She didn't have this great insight to life, so she just gave. She was just such a giving person. You know, she was so giving. She'd give to my friends. I remember I was into guitar, and we were at this store called Sam Ash, and I really liked this guitar. It was like a Jackson, and we were like into like 80s rock at the time. I was like 14, and this guitar was probably around $500-600 or something like that. And I wanted my friend Austin. He had this other guitar. We were all trying to get a guitar, and there was like a blue one. It was like mine. He had like a blue one, and I thought, well, maybe my mom will get it for him, like, and maybe someone could pay him back, or they can work something out or something like that. And my mom literally bought this kid a guitar.
Wow.
Same thing, $500 or something like that.
Wow.
Just because she knew that it was making me happy, because I was pressing for it.
Wow.
And I'm just like, you know, you're just a kid. You just want to see joy. You just want to see awesome things happen. And I wasn't afraid to ask my mom, and my mom was afraid to say no. Not that I would like throw a fit or like be upset. I wouldn't like freak out like some of those people like cussing their mom out. Even though I have, you know, I have done that in shame. But it wasn't over those things. It was over like real blow up situations,
Right.
you know. But my mom just did the best she could. She just turned a blind eye and closed one ear. It's the things she would hear and see. And I think she just thought in her head, maybe it'll work out.
Yeah.
Like there's a silver lining, happy ending somewhere in this. And I don't know. She just never, I hear about my friends and they're like, my mom would have called the cops on you in 2 seconds. Like, I know, but my mom didn't do this. She didn't want to, she threatened me a couple times. You know, if I called the police, you know, what would they find in here kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, don't call the cops. Okay. Let's just not talk. Let's not get, you know, crazy here, you know. And I would suck on my mom. I could talk well. I knew how to say the right things, you know. I could, you know, mom, I'm so sorry, you know, a little liar I was. And you know, my mom just bought it. But she just always had a heart. She had no idea how to raise a child. Not a man. Not only was I a man, but I was a wild man.
Right.
You know. So it's like, what is this lady gonna do, you know?
Right. Yeah, you showed me at one time you a bunch of cash, was it? You had
Oh yeah.
on the bed?
Yeah, that's what I was going to school, and I was was counting money. You know when you got cash, you think it's fun to count cash. You know, you just count for no reason. I was counting cash for some reason, but it was like way early. You know, I was going to school at the time, so school started at 6 or something like that. And I like to get there a little early because I'd like to smoke cigarettes with some chick. And I remember just like I was going to go take a shower or whatever. And I knew the schedules really well. I knew the footsteps of my mom. I could tell exactly what time she'd be in what place. I just had her mapped. So me doing what I was doing was like something I understood. And I remember just having all this cash just laid out on my bed, just everywhere, just cash, just counted. I don't know, I was like doing like stacks of for like thousands and 20s and hundreds and whatever. And I think I was just kind of seeing what can I do with this to like consolidate it and move it. I was thinking, well, what if I put all the hundreds here and put all the 20s here and do this and that, just so now everything's in one place. I don't know. I was just being bored at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember she came in while I was showering, and she lost her mind. She was like terrified. It's like she came out, she was like in a bad dream. She was terrified. She just, what is that? What are you doing in my house? Like, who are you? Kind of like, she's just like, so mind blown, just like what she stepped into. And, yeah, I mean, that's just one of 100 moments where she just screamed and freaked out and then just moved on, just got over it. I smooth talked her out and just, I think I made up some lie. I think I was like, I'm holding the money for somebody. I think I said I was given money to hold on to buy a car, and I'm just making sure the money was there, and just make up stuff right out of your, pull it right out of your hat.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, that's just one of those moments, one of those times where she had every right to freak out, but she wouldn't call my dad. She wouldn't say, hey, you know, caught your son doing, or found your son, or, because my mom I also used to get arrested as a child. I was arrested. I've been to juvie a couple of times. I got little small sentences here and there, a week here, something like that. And used to go to the Xenoff or whatever, and I don't know what it's called today, the juvenile system here in Las Vegas, but my mom used to go to court for me all the time. It seemed like we were just there every 6 months. We were going to court for something. I was getting arrested for something. Stealing, drugs, graffiti, battery one time. I remember there's this regret I have, and there was just this big blowout fight, and we did something bad to this kid. Someone made up some story, and he just, poor guy, just got beat up for no reason. He was beat up really bad. I think they like knocked all his teeth out, kicked his face in, like, and they come after me because someone snitched and said that I was the one who did this, but I initiated it, but I didn't go with what these psychos were doing.
Right.
And there was a video, and I was on probation at the time. So I've also been on probation twice as a minor, 2 separate probation times. And I was on probation, and they put this video on me, and they said, oh, he has blood on his pants. He has blood on his pants. And these cops came to my house, and they're like, well, he definitely has blood on his pants. We found him tucked up. We rolled him up and put him, it's true. I rolled him up and put him under the bottom of my laundry. I always covered my bases. Even if I knew I was clear, I would still cover my bases just for the sake of practice. You know, I've practiced covering my bases. So, but they found it. I mean, cops, man, they're good. They're good at their jobs, you know.
Right.
They can outsmart some teenagers, you know. And, you know, and I somehow wiggled my way out of there because I wasn't actually in the video. But I went for battery. So they gave me a battery charge. I had to like fight it though, you know, go to court, go to my PO. Like, there's just nonstop nonsense I put my mom through.
Yeah.
Just, she'd been in court maybe 15 times. She passed out in the courtroom one time.
Really?
One time, yeah, the judge was like, you know, I told you next time that you're here for graffiti that I told you I would send to you. And I think he gave me, I can't remember, some time. And then my mom passed out, and the judge was like, blah, blah, blah. And then he changed it from like 90 days to like 5 days.
Because your mom passed.
Because my mom literally just lost it. Like on the floor, like can't breathe. And paramedics came in, and this judge was like, look what you're doing to your mom. Look at right here in this court. Look, do you see what you're doing? And they said, get this kid out of here. And they put me back, and I remember it was like one of the first time, I think it was the first time I like had gone for a while, or like for more than just holding.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was like, had tears in my eye, and these guys in the back, they were going to go for sentencing, right? Because they had like different cases going on. These guys like, ain't no tears in here, buddy. You better wipe those tears away. You no more time to cry. You know, you did your punishment now, you know, like, and all these homies that were in there were like, hey, don't be crying up in here, bro. You know, basically, you know, like, this ain't the place.
Yeah.
You know?
Pressed you, huh?
Yeah, dude, pressed me, bro. And I was like, shoot, man, they're right. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember one day I was in there in juvie, and you know, when you're young, when you're first in there, you go to these like tier 1, tier 2. So when you've been in there for a while, you get like more privileges. And I remember my first couple of days in there, this psycho guy comes in here trying to make everyone do push-ups, and we did like 250 push-ups back to back. and he didn't care if I sat there all night to do them. He just was there. And I remember for like, I swear it was like a week, I could not move my arms. Everything was they just destroyed me by doing push-ups, bro. Like you know what I'm saying? Like when you don't like never do push-ups and they just make you do 250 without quitting is just one time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, wow. They said anybody doesn't get locked 24 hours if you don't complete this.
Wow.
And, you know, and I was like, I think they gave you food or whatever, but I think it was like, whatever. Anyway, so that's the kind of stuff I put my mom through. Just madness, you know.
Your poor mom, man.
Dude. Yeah. She still loved me.
Yeah. So, you know, that time, I don't know if I'm mixing up or adding something to the story here, but it seems like I remember you saying something about somebody telling on you or something like that when it came to the police. Is that
okay? So this is a good segue into what happened that I think was a radical change in my life. So I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to make a business work. I'm trying to sell and trying to just do my hustle. And I'm a heroin addict, you know. And I have a buddy who would drop everything. He would drop everything he was doing at the drop of a hat, or whatever that phrase is. If I called him and I said, hey, I needed something, because he knew he was getting something out of it, because I always rewarded people. Like if they did something favor for me, they were always going to get something in return. They knew it. So he knew if I called and I needed something, he would leave his kids at night, tuck them in, and he'd go at 2 o'clock in the morning and go find something for me and get it, because I would give him $20 worth for free.
Yeah.
Or I'd smoke him out, or I'd do something. And this is the kind of guy he was. But we also weren't like friends. We weren't like best buddies, but I could always count on him for like getting something done, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was this kind of guy. And so we were, I have another friend who did the same business as I did, but he was just a little bit more successful. And I think it's probably just my greed, because he didn't have the habits. I was spending so much money, I didn't want to get high alone, so I used to just buy my friends. They'd come over and it's fine. We would do like $200-300 worth of stuff like every other day. It seemed like 2-3 days worth, and then it's like, and then so I was running out of money. Not running out. I mean, technically I was, but I was like, the income wasn't coming out as much as I was giving away. You know.
Right.
I'm throwing away all this money, you know, people. Oh, you need $100. You need $100. Oh, go buy this. Just go buy it. Just get whoever needs. Shut them up. Give them more money. You know, I just throw money at my problems, you know. And so, my buddy gets raided, and like full on raid, like SWAT, you know, coming in and out, and they got all this dude for a bunch of weed and shrooms. Actually, you know, I did end up selling shrooms. I was like selling shrooms. It was like a phase that everybody was like going through.
Yeah.
So I would buy a couple of pounds, and that stuff you had to sell so quick because it was you get dry, it just gets so gross. And so my buddy gets busted, and we later find out this guy, he is selling heroin to some dude on an Air Force base, but like maxing this dude out. Like he's selling like $50 for 500, like just something ridiculous. And on his way back, he gets popped, and he tells this cop, hey, if you let me go, I will give you names. I will literally tell you guys who sell heroin.
Yeah.
I became a heroin dealer at that moment because of his words. Me and this dude. And they start to follow us. I find out later on the story, so I'm giving you a hindsight, but they start to watch us. And they thought my buddy was selling to me. They thought he was my supplier, but he wasn't my supplier. We just hung out all the time. We were just friends, you know. And he had another spot like mine, but his was more free. He had like a big house, and we would just be up all night, every single night there. So I spent a lot of time there. My mom's like couldn't stay all night. It was just too much of a blow up.
Right.
So we find out basically after this guy gets popped, goes to jail, they take like, I don't know, 30 grand, 8 or 7 pounds of weed, 4 or 5 pounds of shrooms, something like that. And he goes to jail, I think for 2 months he's in jail. And at this time, I have a friend who comes out of nowhere. He comes out of nowhere. We used to be best friends, and he comes out of nowhere and he starts telling me, "Hey, man, like I'm so excited to see him because I love this guy. Like I was first with everything. Like the first time we drank alcohol, first time he was this, first time with that. We were just like a lot first. It was like really weird, when you're like a child, like 14, 15, 16, he was kind of there. And he disappeared. He went to another city, he went to New Mexico. And so he comes back and he's telling me, "Hey, man, you got to come to church with me." And he's talking about like, I got saved or some mumbo jumbo like that. Just like some jargon. He's using words I don't understand. He's talking like Bible, Jesus, saved, church, stuff like this. And I'm just kind of like, what? That's awesome, man. Like, that's great. Like, he's so happy. I was like, that's great. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, And I think I was just agreeing with him, And but then he had nowhere to stay. He had his mom wouldn't let him stay because she didn't trust him. Because it's true, because we used to be trouble. We also got arrested together. Our moms knew each other because we got popped a few times. And so he wasn't quite trustworthy yet. So he lived with me for a little bit, and here and there, And so I had a few people live with me. At that time, I had like 2 or 3 dudes living with me. They just basically stayed at my house, some dudes, and they ended up getting in trouble. It's like always cops at my house, And so he tells me this story of basically how he got saved. And I'm interested, but I have no idea what he's talking about. So he begins to just tell me all these things over the course of a couple days, just giving me some basic stories. And he was just talking to me. He was just explaining what happened to him and just using these references, but I had no idea because he was using the Bible to tell me all these stuff. And he would just say, "Hey, about Moses and Noah and David and this and that." And the one that really got me was this Jesus who is coming back one day and this kind of stuff. And we used to watch these sermons by this preacher. His name is Billy Graham. And we used to watch these old sermons from 1950s, black and white guy preached his heart out. And I just thought it was powerful. It was so new. I just was like kind of blown away. And very piqued my interest in it. He helped me connect a lot of dots. There's a lot of parts of life that he actually had answers for. I think we were just talking about things.
Right.
And the Bible just kind of was inside my heart, inside me as a person. I felt like connected to it. I felt as though this was truth. Like I felt like this was legit. Like I felt like, there's these storybooks, there's these things, I'm like, oh, this is what all these stories, all these things that you vaguely understand, because I didn't have a church background. I didn't have a religious background at all, really,
Yeah.
My dad, just to give you just a little background, he is an Arabic guy, and he's a Muslim guy, but he wasn't like this hardcore practicing guy. He was like pretty secularized. We would call him like a nominal, he's, that's what he grew up in. That's what all he knows. That's what he tells you, And so, but he's a Muslim guy,
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't get any teaching from him, not any real teaching, just jokes. We used to mock. We used to mock Mormons knocking at your door. We used to say, tell me you're a Muslim, We would joke, ha ha ha.
And your mom?
My mom was basically a Catholic who was born and was basically went to school in a Catholic church. they call them something that I can't pull off the top of my head, but it's basically an all-girls boarding school, but it's a Catholic. And there you can become a nun and all that stuff. And it's a very religious school. And I think that's just how the country was at the time in Africa. You know, religion was like a form of education, and it opened the door of education. And so she always had a relationship with the Catholic Church, and she never went a day in my life because there was some event that occurred that put a bitter taste in her mouth. I have no idea to this day what it was, but she would refer to it from time to time, and she used to say, well, actually the other day we did some stuff, some, not financials, but some personal stuff, and it came up, and like, so I still don't have the answer to that. Like, what happened to you? You know, but somehow there's a fallout. And so she would say little things in here, a little like, oh, you know, God willing, or something like that, you know, little not pithy, but like little sayings that really had no meaning because it had there's no basis for it. Never went to church, never talked. It wasn't like Jesus. The name of Jesus was not in the conversation. The Bible. She had a Bible, but it was like a Catholic Bible that just basically sat on her shelf. And I only knew it was a Bible because like one day when I was like 17, I like went to church one day with this guy, but then totally forgot about it. It's like another backtrack situation. But I ended up going to this church for one service. I just thought, wow, I just really want a cigarette. Like, it's so boring. Yeah. Like, and then my buddy was like, supposed to be like this cool guy, was like raising his hands. He had like his eyes closed and he was like singing these songs. I'm like, this guy's a fag. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but this is really corny. This is really, I'm like, yo, where's the bathroom? And then this girl we were with, she's like, don't laugh at him. I was like, of course I'm going to laugh at him. Like, what are you doing, bro? Like, tell him to stop. He's making me uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness.
I thought, wow, this is stupid. I thought, well, whatever. Hey, I did the thing. They wanted me to go. And then the guy in the middle group, they never told me they grew up in church together. They said they were friends from back in the day, but they didn't say, oh yeah, we were raised in church in diapers together, you know?
Right.
And so one of them wasn't going along with the okie doke. He was just there like me. So I thought like he was the odd one out. And then after that moment, I never saw that dude again. And then the guy who actually led me to Christ one day, that my buddy that was there, he took off. And so from 17 years old to 19, I never saw the dude. And that's when he pops into my house, 19 years old, out of nowhere. He just said, I just was wondering if you still lived here. And sure enough, it was cracking because literally I had 3 people living at my house and it was just nonstop nonsense, you know? Right. And, you know, I did a little like jujitsu, like MMA when I was like a freshman for like a little bit. And so in my garage, I had like a punching bag. I had like mats, like these cheap mats and like a bench. So we would always just like wrestle or box each other or lift weights or something like that. So people always like knew me for having the gym or whatever. And then, you know, so we used to just mess around or whatever. And so, anyways, I don't want to rabbit trail, but,
He comes to live with you.
Yeah. So we're spending time together now, and it's my birthday. I turned 19 years old, and I'm like on this like trip now. I'm like, whoa, like, what's up with this Jesus thing? And he showed me some stuff out of the Bible, and he came with a Bible to my house one day with my name written on it. And I had never been to church yet. I was just so into it. Like I was about it. Like I was like, this is cool, man. Like, sure, yeah, I'll take that Bible. Yeah, I'll read that thing. You know, like, this is cool. And I had a bunch of friends, and I was like, dude, we should go to church with this guy that we all knew him. You know, all my friends knew him. And they're like, yeah, let's just go. Like, why not? Let's just go. And then my buddy's dad got out of prison. He'd been in prison for like 8 years. And he was just so upset that we were going to church, that his son, you know, because we were hanging out with them. And he was just so upset we were going to church. He was like, don't go to that stupid church. Like, don't forget. And he's like, no, man, like I've known me, Tarek, he's known me for a long time. You know, like he's like, oh, this is like my friend, Dad. I don't think you understand. Like, while you were in prison, like these are the guys that took care of me.
Right.
I took care of this dude. Like people wanted to eat him for lunch, and I like got in the way. You know what I'm saying? Like I protected, like in a way. You know, there were times that I had this like protective nature over my friends too because they weren't like super big, but they just were troublemakers. So I was always like kind of scrappy. Like if you wanted to like fight, like we could definitely do that. And there's always like friends. So it's like it's like if you want one of us, you gotta take all of us, kind of thing. And so that's how I thought these guys. We were just like friends like that. We were real tight. So it made sense that he wanted to like follow me, and he was cool with it, but his dad wasn't into it. And then I thought, well, that's all good. You should just come anyways. So there's just this Sunday morning I get invited, and they just invite me, and I just go to this church. This church, it's like a Christian church. It's called the Potter's House, and I hear this guy. He's preaching, and I don't remember too much of what he was preaching on, but I remember thinking, yeah, that's me. That's me right there. And he did this thing called an altar call where he basically just invited people who don't know Jesus. You could like raise your hand and come to like the front. He called it the altar, and someone from the church came and prayed with me. A guy named Don Thompson. He prayed what we call like a sinner's prayer, where you just like being led to Christ. It's like a prayer of like simple salvation, like confess and believe. Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead, and you want to give your life to Him. And by faith, you do that. I said, yeah, and I prayed that prayer, and I meant it. And I remember sitting there at that altar, sitting there on the floor, thinking something in me said, sorry, this is what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. This right here. And there's just joy in this presence of all these people. I feel like I finally found the truth. I feel like I arrived. I felt like here it is. I like finally came to the place I needed to be. And was like so blown away, so filled with joy. And I'm still a drug addict, still a heroin addict, still have a girlfriend, still got the drugs, still got all this stuff. But I just got Jesus in my heart. I just received and totally have an experience. I have a tangible experience. I'm like, oh my God, something in me is like radically changing. Something is going on inside of me. Like I'm so happy. And I just want to be here at this place, this church I found.
Yeah.
And so I began a new path, and this path requires a radical decision, and that's I can't keep doing what I'm doing with my life. I can't. I know it. No one sat me down and said, hey, you got to change your life now. Something in me I just knew. I knew having sex with my girlfriend was wrong.
Yeah.
No one told me that. No one said this is chapter and verse. Something in me, I think it was the Holy Spirit.
And this is coming from not knowing anything about religion or anything.
Nothing, bro. Never read the Bible. Besides like that couple of days. And it wasn't even me. It was just like someone pointing some things out, but we would just talk. We weren't even like reading the Bible necessarily. Although I did own a Bible with my name on it at that time for like 3 days. I was like, and just this big momentous leading up to this church service. And so, yeah, no one told me, and I realized I gotta stop selling weed, and I gotta get off this drug. I gotta get off heroin, man. I gotta stop smoking cigarettes. I gotta stop smoking pot. I gotta stop drinking beer. I gotta stop partying with all these psychos. I gotta stop being, and I just knew it. I can't do both. I can't be partying and do all this stuff. And I tried a little bit because I would like go back to my friends. I would try to go back and tell them like, dude, you guys gotta go to this church. Like, this is crazy, man. Like these guys, they preach and they just like, they know what we're going through. They know there's like an answer. Like we're always like, well, I don't know what, I have these friends that used to have tattooed on their chest, the Lost Boys. and being lost. And I said, listen, man, we can be found. Like, we can be like, I found the place.
Yeah.
We can just all just stop doing this because I literally found it. And I invited everybody I could. And I had a lot of friends who told me, man, good for you, man, just not for me. And I thought, no, listen to me. It is for you. And I made some decisions. And luckily, there was guys in the church who came out of the same lifestyles as me. You know, we were just, I don't want to say kids because we were technically adults, but we were just lost people who were found.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm on this mission. Like, okay, I gotta change my life, but I gotta make all these decisions. Never had a job in my life. Someone told me you probably should get a job. And I'm like, bruh, I don't even know what that means.
This is the guy that thought he was going to be a longevity drug dealer, right?
Yeah. Me, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my whole life I thought this is what I was gonna do, man. I thought I was just gonna grow weed and be out there and just I had a couple of friends who were in their 50s who I just do work with, and that's all they did. Play video games, they would drive their fast car, one of them had like a Corvette, all this. They just used to just smoke pot and just enjoy their little life. And I thought I just had no reference for anything real. I had no understanding, you know, and, but this is what I wanted. It just seemed fun to me. I just felt like, hey, how can I have as much fun as possible? Like they're in their 50s. They're not boring. They're fun. Like they're doing their thing. Like they have a house. They have a Corvette. Like he's got this sick game system. Like, but that's as a teenager looking at an adult 50-year-old, you're thinking, you know. And so I have no idea what my life would have turned out regardless. You know, I probably would have turned into something else. But regardless of that, it wouldn't have been a decision. I still would have been led by nothing that God made us for.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have all this weed and I start to get rid of it, but I make money off of it. I just sell it at a really low price. But, well, here's one way to get rid of it as fast as possible. I'll just give these ridiculous prices. But then everybody I was telling just thought I was trying to rob them. Everybody was just like, yeah, right. You're going to freaking pull a gun out on me. I'm like, when have I ever done that? Like, why would today be the day, you know? And then I would just tell every person I called, I'm giving my life to Jesus. I'm going to church. Come get this weed. I used to send out I was texting people. And every person I told, I'm giving my life to Jesus. Come get this weed. $100 an ounce. You know, or I used to sell for like 300 or 350 or something like that.
Evangelism and slinging.
Yeah. Yep.
You had a going out of sell.
Going out of business sell.
Going out of business sell.
That's good, bro. Yeah, liquidation, dude. We just need to pay the close the doors and we're out. That's all it was, man. That's so funny. That's a great way of putting it, man. Going out of business sale. Yeah, that's what it was, bro. Everything's 50 to 90% off, dude. Gotta go. And so everything's gotta go. And so I spent like a couple weeks, I think, doing that. And at the time I was hanging out with these guys. It was a bunch of single dudes at this house and they're just rambunctious. And we just used to hang out and talk about Jesus and all this stuff. And we just became friends. We just had a real friendship, you know. We just became a tight-knit bunch of guys that came from fatherless homes. But it was more than like some group, you know, because sometimes I say that, and if you're listening, if you're a person who like never experienced what I'm saying, it may come off like, oh, you joined some group or you joined some thing, you know. It's like we joined a softball team or something like that. And I just want to say, like, looking back now, there is still nothing that even comes close to what I'm talking about that I've experienced. You know, from 19, I'm 32, And I've worked. Actually eventually learned how to work, and I worked really hard, and I just keep working. Worked all kinds of jobs, and I still haven't found something that someone says this is better than this.
Yeah.
Not an education, not, and if you call it a party or temporary, there are tons and tons and tons of statistics that prove that living a life of fun is not fulfilling, and people are more depressed, more are full of anxiety today, full of angst, scared, depressed, hopeless. I mean, COVID just threw everybody. COVID was so great because it really just pulled the covers off of people. People thought they were big and bad, and they were buying toilet paper at the Costco.
Right.
Give me a break, right? You ain't big and bad. People were buying cans of whatever, preserved food,
Right.
stocking up their fridge, scared, just scared children. And it just pulled the covers off of who was who. And I got to learn a lot about people, and I thought, I'm walking on clouds because I'm not worried about any of this.
Right.
And so there's a dynamic that is not a social club. Like what I experienced is something that happened from the inward and eventually worked itself outward. And you may hear these stories and you may think like, oh, it just sounds like you turned your life around, or like I'm an AA meeting. I do not support AA meetings, although they were originally a Christian organization. They're no longer a Christian organization. And not to take away the fact that groups like that help people, but that's not what happened to me.
Yeah. The heroin, you were saying like how you needed to get off of the heroin.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should have caveated with all that by saying my heroin addiction was existing. It was real. I used to take Suboxone, and I just used to get my hands on these things that people would give me when you're withdrawing. It's these they look like Listerine strips. They're like, you put them on your tongue, and then all of a sudden you don't have the cravings for heroin temporarily, And I used lots and lots and lots of those because I used to hide my addiction. Because, once you're smoking that much, 8 hours could go by and you would be hurting, you'd be withdrawing.
Right.
And I remember thinking, God, you got to help me with this. If you could do anything, I need to get out of this. Like, this is serious. I felt the seriousness of it. I felt like, you know what, this is, number one, it's messing up my body. My body was just so strange. I didn't even know it. I just used to feel things in my body that just thought were just not right. I think, like digestively, and my skin and my face and it was just wicked, man. I could just see this. You see these people that are like picking things out of their skin. They just look, I could see the beginning manifestation of those steps where people just look monstrous.
Right.
And I was like, God, you got to get me out of this, man. I got to get out of this. And I remember praying this prayer, just praying, go God kind of thing, nothing I read out of the Bible. Just simply asking, simply just praying, just like, oh God kind of thing. And I remember not having withdrawals for an extended period of time. And I remember going about normally what I was doing. I think I was hanging out, fellowshipping with these guys, meaning just hanging out, getting together, gathering together, as friends or whatever, however you want to say it. And I just remember time was going by, and I remember thinking, I was having so much fun, it was distracting, and I didn't even notice I wasn't having withdrawals. And then I realized, oh wow, a whole day went by. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and I wasn't withdrawing. And I'm like, well, next day. And before I knew it, I had this moment, I was like, I know I would have withdrawn. And I'm trying to connect these pieces, and it just happened so fast because when I first came to church, we were just hanging out all the time. Just, I would go to when I first, because I was still tempted for a couple of weeks. I was still tempted because I would go to my friend's house and I told them all about Jesus, and then they'd still be doing heroin, and I'd be like, oh, just one hit, and they used to tell me, no, man, you're finally getting out of this. Like, we're not going to give you this. And then I realized being around them was not going to help me get off of this stuff. And so that's when I began this progress. It was probably about a month after I got saved. Probably the day that I came to church, probably about a month later. But then that's when I finally noticed. Because simultaneously, I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes too, because number one, they're expensive and they're killing me and they're just kind of gross. And I remember looking for a cigarette in my garage, and I didn't have any cigarettes, but I used to have butts all in the cracks of my garage. And I used to leave them like purposely, kind of, but I couldn't find any ones that had like at least a quarter inch or something, on them. And I found this one that was just nasty. It was just literally just a cigarette without filter, because I smoked cigarettes. I used to pull the filter out. And I remember the thing had like basically 1 or 2 hits on it or something like that. And I lit this thing up, and I just remember inhaling this thing. It was just the nastiest thing. It's like really how it really tasted, like physically tasted in my mouth. It was really like, I know it kind of sounds stupid, like something that I'm very aware of the taste, because I've been smoking cigarettes with the filter for like years. Like, just was randomly like way, way different.
Right.
And I remember flicking the cigarette, breathing out. Wow, that was horrible. And I said, God, I'm never going to smoke these cigarettes again.
Wow.
And that was the last time I ever touched a cigarette.
Yeah. So we're talking about just cold turkey.
That's it, man. And the heroin was cold turkey. It was through a little bit of distraction. But regardless.
Prayer.
And yeah, a little bit, but it was prayer. Distraction really wasn't it.
Yeah.
It really wasn't it. Because I've been distracted. You go to a party. Sometimes you party, but you're still waking up like,
right.
Oh, why do I feel this way? Oh, I feel sick. Oh, you get withdrawals are kind of like cold sweats, and you feel like majorly uncomfortable. You're just like you're just lacking. You're just lacking life. You're just like, gosh, man, you just feel horrible. It's like you're getting sick.
Well, you can actually die from it, right?
Yeah. Well, alcohol actually has the withdrawals that will kill you.
Mm.
Heroin will make you want to die.
Mm.
And they probably have some point where they can kill you, but they're not the deadly ones like alcohol, but they're horrible. They can be really bad. So bad where you're just throwing up and you're just basically wicked sick for a day or 2, 3 days.
Yeah.
Some people get it really bad. Some people get it way worse than I had it. I feel bad for people who had it. I remember being in jail one time, and I saw this guy, and he was overdosing or withdrawing from heroin. He'd been holding for like 2 days straight.
Mm.
And that boy was screaming. He was crying all over the floor. He's throwing up. He just one guy going through hell. It just looked like, I was like,
right.
I had never done heroin at that point yet, but I remember these dudes were saying, I'm like, what's up with that dude? And he's like, oh, he's withdrawing from heroin. He's been here for 2 days.
Wow.
And I was like, sheesh,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, like where your sin will take you, because here you are, you're seeing guys like doing heroin, you're thinking like, man, I'll never do that type of stuff. And then you see this
You really
guy,
do say that. I really have said that to myself.
And then you see this guy in prison.
Right.
And he's literally grown man cry or jail rather. He's
holding cell, yeah.
You see this man is crying and screaming and going through tormenting pain.
Yeah, tormenting. That's a good word.
But then later on you start doing the same exact thing.
Right.
It's crazy.
How do you remember that? How do you remember? It's like you're like wondering, like, when am I going to get to that point? It's like, the will of a person is so strong.
Yeah.
Because you can like see a train coming at you and just physically not move, It's like, it's going to hit you, it's going to hurt, but we don't believe it until we feel it. It's like so stupid.
So you had mentioned, like with another part of your transition was like you coming from not working a job and then like you getting saved, becoming a Christian, and knowing that you had to do something else with your life besides selling drugs. So you had the going out of business sale, and
Right.
then what kind of happened after that?
Well, I was told, make your job getting a job. At the time, that was the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Like, you want me to try and get a job for 8 hours a day? Like, what kind of nonsense is that? You know, in my head, you're so stupid. And somebody told me that, and I thought, all right. I had a bike and a bus pass. And like, all right, here I am. Someone, I got to give me a tie. I said, wear a tie and go ask for jobs. So I did that. Went to a bunch of places and filled out job applications, like barely filling them out, like not even having a clue. Didn't even know my own social security number. Like, I'm like, Googling, what's my social security? Like, you don't even know what you're like, no clue. And, man, 8 months went by, bro, and I was taking advantage of people because I was like used to people's kindness where they buy you lunch after church, you go fellowship. It's like, I don't got any money, man. You got me, bro. It's like, no, actually, I've got you the last 20 times. I'm not getting you this time. And you start, I remember feeling one time I was sitting so stupid, like, wow. And then it reminded me, you used to be loaded with cash and you used to buy everybody things. Like, what is this 10, $15 thing? Like, and I remember probably the Holy Spirit, I have no idea. Or maybe just, I have no idea. But I remember thinking, that's embarrassing. I felt so embarrassed. You know, coming from like a place where I used to be, you know, but just taking advantage of the fun. I was like on this wild ride. And no one came up to me and said, here's your bill for all this amazing fun you're having.
Yeah.
Like getting saved and coming to church and getting delivered and all these awesome things that are happening to me. You know, no one threw a bill at me. No, church didn't come up to me and say, well, you know, now we expect you to pay your way around here. You know, you need to give us money. You know, like there was none of that. It was just Jesus freely gave to me. And I was just riding that wave, I think, a little too long. And so my dad actually helped me get actually, I tried to sell this product and I was miserable at it. I couldn't sell this product. It's like a vacuum or something. I got sucked in something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Good old Kirby's.
Something like that, right? I think mine was called a Rainbow.
Oh, Rainbow, yeah.
You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I could not do that job. I just
$3,000 vacuums.
Yep. Oh, there's dudes up in there that did it and they were successful. I guess I don't know. I didn't know. They asked me to make coffee one time and I put 2 filters. I thought, man, I don't know how to make coffee. And you don't have a clue. I just was so useless, so funny looking back. So I eventually get a job with my dad at the restaurant, and my dad got me a job. I was in fine dining as a busser.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day shift there, it was so dead. It was like literally 2-3 people. So I'd be there for like 6 hours, like serve like 2, 3, 4, 5 tables. But I learned how like the process works. And I was so terrible. People hated me. They just literally hated me. They said, oh my God, give me literally anybody but that guy. And I just didn't know how to work, man.
Yeah.
I just had no work ethic. I just thought everything was stupid. But I tried, and then I got good, and I was there for a while, and I got really good, and I learned a lot. And in this time, I was getting discipled. Now that's a whole nother word, you know, disciple. For somebody who's listening doesn't know the word discipleship, it's got the word discipline in it, and that's basically the big takeaway is disciplined lifestyle. Like,
yeah.
You know,
you're learning to become disciplined in your relationship with God.
Right. That's it. That's like best way to say it. And so in that process, I was learning a lot about having a father is really kicking in at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, wow, thanks Dad for getting me this job and teaching me absolutely nothing. You know, like, wow, like you never learned that. no one taught you how to cut with a knife before? No, man. I remember my first day on the job, the chef of the restaurant, he's kind of this crazy Italian, and he's telling me how to cut his bread, because they used to get fresh bread in every single day. It's a nice restaurant, and all these kinds of bread, and he grabbed my hand and he just plopped it right on the bread cutting board. He took this big old knife to my hand, and he said, "You better learn how to cut my bread. I'm going to cut your hand off." And he's like, "Don't think I'm playing. I'm serious with you." Some crazy Italian. And I thought, this guy's a psycho. But I kind of liked it. It kind of like, it was like, yeah, bro, like, I'll cut this bread exactly the way you want me to cut it.
Yeah.
And that kind of learning, I kind of learned in myself that I gravitated toward people who were just straight up about things that they wanted. And it kind of gave me another dynamic to understanding how this world worked. So I come out of this lifestyle of just madness, like so many evil things I witnessed, but I never saw the normal side of life's trouble, like what you see people driving to work on the freeways. Like, where are these people going? Oh, they're going to their job. What does that even mean? They're doing these things, and like, it's just like being in that position for the first time in my life as a 19, well, actually almost 20 at this time. Actually, no, I was 20. And so a whole year almost went by. A whole year went by since I came to church before I got this job, dude. That's how, imagine a whole year of banging your head against the wall. You can see them, you can kind of imagine like where I was at. Like, so as far as like the program mindset, it's like, listen, this ain't a program, dude. This is real life. And so, God helped me tremendously. He helped me out. Like a child, man. I mean, I would pray things and God would answer my prayers. It was like the wildest thing. I tried witnessing on this job. People that hated my guts ended up liking me. I ended up having some good friends from that job. And, I remember this one time there was this Russian girl. She was this little girl. She's just basically a little, I don't know. I don't want to say anything rude about Russians, but she was funny. And, she hated me.
Yeah.
She thought I was just an idiot. It was awesome. She just thought I was like so stupid. And I got upset about that because I thought, I'm not stupid. I'm getting good at this, And I wanted to tell her about Jesus, man. And she bought this tie clip one day. She came in the office like, "Oh, you got a new tie clip?" Because we wore ties. And, they wear tie clips because when they bend over, they don't want their tie falling in the soup or in the food. So you wear a tie that keeps you. As a busser, I had this whole apron. So my tie was covered. Blah, blah, blah. Useless information. So she loses this tie clip on this big party. She loses it. She's like, "I lost my tie clips, brand new. I spent so much money on it, blah, blah, blah." I don't even know what that means. Like, how much is the tie clips? Right? Her accent, she's like a full-blown Russian accent. It's awesome. And so I say, "God, let me find that tie clip and I want to use it. And if I find it, I'll tell her about Jesus. I promise." This is the kind of relationship I have with God. And I'm cleaning up this table and I'm doing this by myself. It's like big table, seating like 40, no, not 40, maybe like 25 people. And it's just a mess, And we're putting all these waters on, it's fine dining. They have all these extra nonsense, And lo and behold, there's this shiny thing. I look it up, boom. I find a tie clip, man. I find it. And I just know it's hers. Like, who else is it's going to be? Who loses a tie clip, And I was so happy. I was like, And so, I ended up giving her, at the end of the night, I kind of told her about Jesus or whatever. And I said, "Oh, I prayed that I'd find your tie clip so I could tell you Jesus loves you." She said, "Yeah, sure, give me a tie clip." And, but it was that kind of relationship that I have with God. Like, that's the point of my story, not about the tie clip, but the point is like, this is like literally the relationship with God. And you can see these prayers. And it's like that all the time. I had like little things like that happen all the time. And it was like God was caring for me like a child. He would like let me see that, hey, I'm here. I hear you even in these hard times. Because I used to be frustrated too.
Father to the fatherless.
Yeah, man, he just fathered me, man. God just fathered me, bro. Like from scratch, even though I was 20 years old at the time, I just felt so insufficient about life. I just felt like, yeah, I got out of this drug world, but this real world is like kind of scary because there's like so many people. It's not like this group. It's like literally most of the world is like this. It's like
Right.
you find out that your life was actually the big fake world,
Right.
and this is the real world, baby, as they say. And so, he's a father to the fatherless, and I learned, I climbed my way. That restaurant got closed down, and I got a starting position at a steakhouse they opened up at Palace Station. I was the opening steakhouse. I had a lot of favor. Some people from the other job knew me there, and I started out as like a lead busser, and they wanted to promote me like really fast because they just thought it was awesome. I just was fast. I just figured it out. I just got good. I just worked hard, had fun, and so this job has taken me out of church, and I realized I'm missing a lot of my discipleship process in this job because I used to work swing, and and long story short, I put my 2 weeks in for a job. I don't get the job that I sat 2 weeks at this job. Everyone knew I was quitting. I don't get that job. I have to work at Taco Bell, which thank God was awesome because it helped me at the time. And I worked at Taco Bell. They wore another apron, but instead of making, $23 an hour, I was making $8.75. And so, and the roof was really small, and I had to watch my elbows because I was hitting people's face with my elbows because it's just nothing but short little ladies in there. And it was like, wow, this is a real full circle situation here.
Yeah.
And then I get another job driving, and I'd never driven before. Yeah, never driven a truck before. I get this awesome gig to get to drive a truck, and like literally have no idea what I'm doing. And I drive this truck, and a guy from church is actually my boss. If he ever hears this, sorry, I was not as good as I wish I should have been. I tried hard, just don't have a clue. This is a big deal in my mind. I just a little bit overwhelmed. It had to be a salesman and a driver, but there's this job I really wanted to get. I really wanted for a year. I tried to get in, and I was to get into this electrical company, and I got denied. And then later on, like about a year later, I'm driving in this truck, and I get a call, and they say, "Hey, I have so and so in my office here. He tells me you want a job. Is that true?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we don't have any positions open." I said, "Okay, why are you calling?" Like, "Well, we do have one. It's for a driver's position, but I don't think you have any experience driving, do you?" I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I've been working at this driving gig for 3 months. Um, I drive a 16-foot, 8-bay truck. Uh, I haul water to people's front door like a madman. I run up anything we can do, And so he said, "Well, come and do an interview tomorrow or next day or something, mumbo jumbo." And I said, "You got it." And so I go and do an interview, and I get the job. They hire me, and I start out and I meet these people in this shop, and I meet it, and I'm just blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh. And on top of that, the driver position paid more because the starting wage at the like entry level apprentice position, I guess you call it, guys were making $11 an hour, 11.50 or something like that. But I started out at 15. I asked for 20. He said that was steep, but I can do you $15 an hour. And at that point, I was just blown away because I'm like, wow. So I get the job, and that starts a whole trade. And from that moment on, I got hired in 2015. It's 2025 now, And I've been doing that same field for almost 10 years. August would be 10 years. And it's the electrical trade. I went to school for 4 years, graduated from electrical trade school, um, became a journeyman, worked as a professional electrician in Las Vegas, and loved what I did. I just absolutely loved like being an electrician. It just taught me another phase of work and not giving up, and the strengths and applying my discipleship made me understand life a lot more, you know. And in 2021, I got married. After being married for 3 months, I was working in the union in the IBEW, and I quit my job to start my own business with basically $0 and 0 cents. And my wife, who is amazing, who God put in my life, who saved my life in many ways, helped me. She had a great job, and she allowed me to go basically full time to pursue this business, which her and I had both no idea. I met some friends with hers who were from San Jose, and the whole Bay Area culture is money, money, money. And so there's a lot of business owner type people and mindsets in that part. And so I met some of these people, and they told me they were Christians. They go to our church. You know, they're in the San Jose part of our fellowship. Good men, preachers actually. Jason Sanchez was actually a preacher in San Francisco, and he has a business. And he told me, "You can do it, man. Don't be afraid. Just do it." You know, I started my business, whatever, 12 years or whatever it was, he said, ago. And I said, "You're crazy." I was terrified of that idea. I thought, what an idiot. Like, I'm literally just a kid. Like, every business owner I've ever met had white hair. You know, I used to work for a small guy, and I watched, you know, he had a small company, but he was still doing multi-million dollar jobs. And, a lot of experience though. You've been in the trade for 35 years, but still, that's what you expect when you think of a electrical contractor. Like, I don't have a clue what I'm talking about, what I'm doing. And they just helped me understand. And then I was just terrified. I just thought, what a stupid idea. And so this is previous before I quit my job. So I kind of gave you a little preview into this, but the backstory is, because I think it matters, is I was afraid. And in church, we had these things called revivals, and they basically invited a pastor, and he's a guy from Russia. Actually, it's funny. It's another Russian situation here. And really, really amazing preacher. And at the end of the service, he um, felt that God put it on his heart to say that to feel that there was someone in the church that God was dealing with very heavily to step out and start that business. He said, "You're in this place, and God is challenging you right now to start that business. I'm telling you right now from God, do it. Go for it. Start the business." And I had been dealing with this for so long. And there's not a lot of business people in our church. So it's not like a blanket idea where there's 50 guys in there, or, you know. And so I felt like it was me. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'll do it. And then I get the courage, and then I meet another guy from church. Actually, it's so funny because God always connects us. I know it sounds like kind of like maybe another part of the religion that's like church people get people money, and it's like this church kind of scandal thing. That's just where my mind goes. Maybe your mind doesn't go that way, but this is not one of those things, because it's not a motivation. We don't have money making motivation. It's just right. Things that lined up. Yeah. And I overheard a conversation of a guy I was doing a little bit of work with, just over his house, helping him put a fan up, I think. And I heard this big conversation. I hear his boss tell him, "We need this conduit ran in Irvine, California. We need this pipe ran. We have no electrician. We have no way to get it done." And I overhear it. I feel God tell me, "Go ask him, and go tell him you will do it for him." And I thought, that's crazy, man. I'm not going to do it. And then he has another conversation. I'm there for a while, and I said, forget it. I'm just going to ask him. I was like, hey, I overhear you're looking for a conduit to be ran. Is that true? And he's like, yeah, man, we had an electrician who bailed out on us. We have no one's jobs to do. We're supposed to pull fiber, mumbo jumbo, whatever. I say, hey, listen, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll go down there to California. I'll do that conduit. You just tell me what you need. You give me, and I have zero business skills. Don't know how to write an estimate. Don't know how to write an email. Don't know how to write nothing. I don't have a zero clue. All I did was turn wrenches. I just worked as an electrician. You know, I could use drawings, but I wasn't responsible for any administration business. I have no idea. All I know is that I could do the job. And that's all I think I needed. Just a willingness to just listen to God and do what he told me to do. So I stepped out in faith, which was totally faith. And I quit my job the day leading up, and I felt all these pieces led up. And then I quit my job, and the very next day I quit my job. I rent a van. I buy all the material I think I'm going to need. I go searching for parts. I go look for things, looking for deals. I bought some cheap ladders, some 10-foot ladders. I bought this, I bought that. It's all the money that I was supposedly going to get, which I did, but, you know, just money that I didn't necessarily have up front. I do this job, and I'm thinking it's going to take me forever. They quoted me all this pipe. They said, oh, it's this run, and it wasn't even half the distance they said. So I bought all this pipe. I gave them a bid on all this stuff, and the run was half the work. And I had somebody with me, because I had a friend of mine come with me, because he was crazy enough to come with me. He was an electrician too. And Jake, it's funny. He's one of my good friends. He came with me, said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll help you. And we literally knocked the entire job out in like less than 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah, I had to run this pipe from here to there. And me and him, we work well, I think. And I had to paint this pipe. There was some section, whatever. So we get it done. Guy comes up, he's like, I cannot believe you got this job done this fast. I said, me too, man. He said, well, here's a check. Here's half the money, or more than half. Here's all the labor. And he said, you'll receive your material check, whatever, Friday or something. You know, he's an email engineer. I don't even know. And so I take this money, and that was my first job for this business. And I call it Olive Electric, like the fruit or vegetable. I don't even know what it is. And it was just, that just started a couple years ago, and I'm still doing it. God's helping us.
Yeah.
You know, we've very small beginnings. God has to teach me. I had to learn so much. I basically had to learn from scratch. The School of Hard Knocks. I literally have no clue what I'm doing at any moment sometimes. And so God has taught me every painful detail, learning layer by layer by layer by layer, just firsthand learning it. And friends are there for encouragement, but the work, you know, and so we're trying our best. We're doing as best as we can, and God has helped us every year. We've been in business for just technically 2 years. 3 considering like maybe a fiscal type thing, but we have doubled, each year has doubled what we brought in.
Right.
You know, we're not like millionaires, but God has been very faithful to bless us, and we constantly put the business in his hands. I'm not driven by money or by a selfish motivation. I hope not, you know. But where I'm at in my life, God has taken me an amazing full circle. He's pretty much given me everything I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
I have an amazing life that is filled with friends, love in my house, just everything somebody could ask for. You know, God has brought me through in this last 10 plus years being in church and surrendering to Christ at not every time it's been gone my way. I would say most of the time it doesn't go my way. It's because if I got my way, I'd be in even more trouble. And so, just an amazing journey I've been on. To be sitting here on this podcast, telling you this is kind of amazing when I look back at everything we fought for and been through.
Yeah. You used a trigger word that I was just about to use, which is full circle, right? So because pretty much you're speaking about the business, and since you started the business has doubled every year, and it kind of goes back to those days where you're living the wrong type of life, a life that doesn't give God the glory. And you start off with that quarter of weed that you have, and then you double it and double it, and then
that's a great observation.
Yeah, and so you're doubling it, and you think, man, this is the life I'm gonna live. I don't want to work a job. I'm not doing this, and then you get saved, you become a Christian, and God takes you through this progression where there are these times where your finances weren't, that amazing. And then there's times where your finances were okay, and, life goes on, and you're being able to handle all of your expenses and do all the different things. And now God has transitioned you to where, he's come around full circle. Now the business is doubling, and it's just like, what we like to say is that God takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it around for good, right? And so there was this business acumen that was already there, and the devil was trying to pervert that, but God takes that and turns it around, and now he's using it for his kingdom. And I think, we all have something in us that maybe in the world we're using it for negativity, or it's this characteristic or this trait that's in us, and maybe it's even just like a seed. We haven't even seen it in its fullest potential, but it's there, and it's being used in a negative manner, but God takes it when you come into the kingdom, and he uses it, for his glory. So that's truly amazing. And with that, this podcast it's called the Mind of God podcast. And so what I like to do is use, whatever I can, testimony or, scripture, whatever I can use to point everything back to us embracing the mind of God, because I believe that's what all humanity was designed for, is not to have this based human mindset where we're focused on the things of this earth, but we have the mind of God, and we kind of have this heavenly focus. And so I'm going to leave you with the last words, just for anybody that's out there watching. One thing you want to leave them with to apply to help them to embrace the mind of God.
Well, I like the connection you made. Observation that you made that I didn't necessarily make, where I talked about the doubling.
Yeah.
Because that was a primary thing I remember from then. I don't remember a lot of things, but I remember the doubling thing. I remember I had, and I doubled. And it's so funny because I've been saying this doubling thing the last couple of weeks. Asked my wife. I'm like, wow, look at this number. It's like almost exactly double. And then like, but look at this here. This is like almost exactly double than that number. And I think the mind of God is so funny because to have a mind, you have to think. And I think God thinks of ways to make your life glorify him in a unique, personal way. Like I can hear something that maybe is moving, a crazy story, but it doesn't really mean anything to me personally other than that it's like kind of a crazy story.
Right.
But the fact that I can connect these two dots, it's like God's way to personally, out of one of 8 billion people that he would willingly do this for, God's like, no, even though you're one of 8 billion, I'm going to make a personal connection to you.
Yeah.
And that comes from the mind of God. I think he thinks about us. The Bible even says, what is man that you consider us? That you even think about us, and God thinks about our ways. He thinks about us. He thinks of ways to bring our hearts and our focus towards him. I think that's really the mind of Christ and mind of God, is just how do we link up our heart and mind with his heart and mind? And I think he does these amazing things to show himself in that way where it's so personal that it goes down to your very soul, and it keeps me so grateful and humbled and personally, what's a good word, more than excited, but expecting, I think, maybe like hopeful. I think maybe that's the best word, hopeful. Like my hope when I know that God's thinking of me, it's like I know there's so much good that comes from God. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if I like this Mind of God podcast, I like this idea because I don't think people understand that God really does think and really has a mind, and all of creation, I think, came from his mind. And if you're hearing this podcast, well, obviously you're hearing it if you're listening to this, but one thing you want to keep in mind is that God is in heaven, but he also sees and he thinks about you. And he's thinking of ways to radically blow your mind.
Amen.
He's conjuring, how can I get this guy or get this woman to realize that I am all they need? And he's successful because God doesn't fail at anything. So if you get near God, you're gonna absolutely experience in a very blameless way, because God is always blameless, and he's gonna make sure that way you can't blame him for not telling you.
Right.
He's good at that. He's good at making himself blameless. He's an amazing lawyer, He's able to force us into a corner where we go, man, that was totally God. I don't know about what the books say, what these scientists say, but I know for a fact something crazy has happened. And that is because God thought about it.
Amen. God is thinking about you.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.